The call to arms. A desperate distress call. Major Nolan C's eyes narrowed with determination as the distress call crackled through his comms. The blood-curdling scream of the GIS-5 settlers pierced the cold Martian night. The remote GIS-5 outpost was under siege by the Thraxed conglomerate, who sought to seize the planet's valuable unium veins. Forbidden from intervening by official channels, Nolan assembled his covert strike team to launch a do-or-die mission to smash through the Thraxed blockade and save the helpless colonists. Assembling the strike team, Nolan ran into the crumbled wall of the outpost, plasma burns still hot on the barrier wreckage. "Lara, traps now," he said, grabbing wires and gadgets from her toolkit. Lara's hands moved fast, planting mines in the red dirt and hiding energy nets between the rocks. Anyone who hit them would get trapped. Harlan checked his pulse rifle and grunted approval to the defenders. He led them to a choke point in the land where the swarming Thraxed would be forced to bottleneck, unable to use their numbers. Facing the onslaught, Nolan watched the Thraxed advance, knowing they thought overwhelming force would crush weak humans. But Nolan had spent his life learning to turn enemy confidence into defeat. He signaled the snipers up on the jagged rocks. The Thraxed had more bodies, but Nolan's humans would each fight like 10. The clash exploded in plasma and pulse fire. The traps worked, blinding and burning the Thraxed, breaking their ranks. They expected easy prey, not a viper nest under fire. Turning the tide. Lara ducked into a control booth, sparks flying as she crossed wires, getting the dormant turrets running. Their heavy blasts pushed back the invaders. The Thraxed retreated, leaving their dead to the Martian dust. They would be back, Nolan knew, jaw clenched as he scanned the horizon, strategizing in silence. In the moment of quiet, Nolan crouched by a console, studying Thraxed battle tactics. His mind sliced through their strategies. Harlan had slipped away, instincts honed hunting silently. He found a hidden node pulsing with alien chatter. "Thraxed relay," he whispered into his comlink, holding his prize. Nolan hunched greedily over the relay as enemy secrets spilled out. "We use their greed against them," he said, hatching a cunning plan. Setting the trap. The trap was set. Using stealth and unium bait, the outpost became a fortress. The hunters waited for their prey. Nolan's eyes glinted with anticipation under Mars's thin night sky. The game was on. Humanity was ready to play. The false retreat. Nolan's voice came through the comms, short and to the point. "Fall back to Rally Point Echo. Make it look real." Lara glanced at him and nodded. She turned and ran, never looking back. One by one, Nolan's soldiers retreated from their positions. To anyone watching, it looked like defeat. They pulled back like they were trying to save themselves. The Thraxed surge. The hulking Thraxed forces roared and surged forward, greedy for a win and the glowing unium the humans had left unguarded. Nolan watched from the shadows, his hand holding the detonator, small and plain-looking, but able to change everything. His team had spent hours placing the charges, every step calculated and precise. Springing the trap. The first Thraxed reached the mine entrance, more pouring in behind. Wave after wave flooded the tunnel, hungry for plunder. Nolan's finger pressed the detonator. The ground erupted in fire and shrapnel. The blasts ripped through the Thraxed forces. Screams of wounded aliens mixed with the crumbling rock. From hidden spots, Nolan's team watched the chaos. At its peak, they attacked, moving through the smoke and flames like ghosts. Their guns cracked death in short bursts, everywhere and nowhere. The Thraxed fired wildly at vanishing shadows, but the enemy was vast. For each one that fell, another took its place, holding the line. Nolan's people fought fiercely. Still, human bodies began to crumple, their blood staining the Martian soil. Lara frantically built a signal array from wrecked tech. She aligned the dishes, twisted the wires, and set the broadcast for Earth Command. Her voice was steady as she sent the message for immediate support and reinforcements. They waited in heavy silence for a response. Nolan knelt by a fallen soldier, closing his hand over the dog tags in a silent promise. He moved the body to a narrow crevice, a natural funnel for the enemy into a deadly trap. Preparing for the next assault, each human body became bait, their sacrifice now an ambush point. They couldn't hold out forever. The odds were stacked against them. But while their hearts still beat in defiance, they would fight on. In that fight, they would teach a lesson etched in Martian stone, a warning to any who doubted them. Humans are masters of war. The tide turns. A sudden opportunity. The pod crashed onto Mars, dust flying up. The pod was small and round, not big like a troop carrier. Nolan's jaw clenched as he pried open the hatch. No soldiers inside, just metal crates and a blinking screen. He hit play. Earth Command's voice came out. "We won't send help, Major C." Nolan shut it off and saw a sealed case. He yanked it out, blueprints unrolling to show a weapon design. The Tempest device to destroy machines with energy. Gathering supplies. Nolan showed Harland and Laura. They shook their heads. The outpost only had some guns. "We build it ourselves," Nolan said. Harland and Laura were quiet. Nolan pointed at his map. A supply depot for the Thraxed had the parts they needed. At night, they went to the depot, wearing stolen Thraxed suits. The suits hid that they were human. They walked past guards, Nolan using a stolen ID. The guard waved them in. Stealth mission. Lara hacked the network, changing the patrols. They slipped inside. Harland searched for danger, loading up parts. Nolan watched the door, his pulse pounding. "Done," Lara whispered. They left quietly, their suits crunching on Mars dirt. They headed home, but their luck ended when a Thraxed stopped them at the gate. It barked and pointed at the parts. Harland punched it in the mask, and they ran. Alarms flashed red. The Thrax had yelled, and more came out, chasing the humans. The final stand. Nolan, Harland, and Lara pushed their suits hard. The outpost was close now. The parts for the Tempest device kept them going. Blasts whipped past them, almost hitting them. They dodged into a ravine, the Thraxed keeping pace. But the humans knew the land. They reached the outpost gate, which slammed shut behind them, safe for now. They laid out the parts, their breaths ragged. "Let's get to work," Nolan said. They nodded, tired but hopeful. The parts could save them or doom them, but it was a chance Nolan liked. Building the device. Nolan's hands were steady as he wired the device together. His heart pounded, but he tuned it out, focusing only on the task. Lara worked beside him, fingers flying as she soldered each connection. They scrambled to finish the Tempest device, their makeshift lab cluttered with parts and tools. Harland's voice crackled over the radio. "Defenses are ready. They'll pay in blood if they try to take this outpost." He had turned the base into a fortress. Now they had to make their weapon. Activating the device. Nolan nodded to Lara. "We're close, but we're almost out of time." Urgency filled the room as they raced the clock. Their grease-stained hands now held the key to survival or extinction. Outside, the sky swarmed with alien ships. The Thraxed attacked in full force, bombarding the surface with energy bombs. Nolan glanced out the window at the raging storm of fire cratering Mars. He knew what had to be done. "We're activating it now, Lara." His voice was firm, but the calibrations aren't complete, she protested. Yet she knew without the device, they had no chance. The final charge. The Tempest device hummed with raw, unstable power. Nolan hovered over the switch and then pressed it. Invisible waves erupted outward, crashing over the Thraxed ships. Alarms blared as drives failed and ships plunged from the sky, their systems disrupted. But the victory was short-lived. The outpost went dark, the Tempest device draining all power in its hunger. Nolan and Lara exchanged looks in the dim light. He barked a single word: rifles. The battle continues. The clash of titans. The clash was visceral, As stranded Thraxed charged in a frenzy, the defenders met them with equal fury, gunfire echoing through the base. The sharp crack of pulse rifles mixed with the heavy thuds of bodies hitting the floor. Nolan led the charge, adapting to the brutal necessities of close-quarters combat. The Thraxed kept coming even as the floors ran purple with blood. Nolan fired and reloaded, picking each shot for maximum impact. Holding the ground, the defenders knew no help was coming. With their backs to the wall, they fought with fierce human spirit, even in the face of impossible odds. After another skirmish, Nolan surveyed his battered team. Ammo and numbers dwindled, but not resolve. Stay strong. Hold this ground. His voice cut through the ringing ears, and they did, with the ferocity of those familiar with war. But Nolan's mind raced. Bravery alone wouldn't save them. He needed a new plan and fast. The enemy had numbers. He would have to outthink them. Interrogation and intelligence. Nolan grabbed a Thraxed officer. His grip tightened as he dragged the squirming creature into the shadows. Nolan held a plasma blade to the alien's throat. The officer's eyes showed fear. Nolan fought fast. Take out command, and the swarm falters. He threw the officer down and worked the alien communicator. Command's the key. Remove the head. The body dies. The team listened close. Distant pulse fire echoed around them. Harland, you're up. Harlan nodded, expression grim. I'll hammer their door, you and the generals. Silent infiltration. Shadow cloaked Harland and the others as they left. Lara pointed at her display. Lines and dots mapped their path through the tunnels. This way, she whispered. They crawled to the heart of Thraxed command. Nolan led, following Lara's path. Each silent step promised vengeance. They reached the alien lair unseen. Nolan's team spread like tendrils, fast and quiet. Their blades sliced down officers before reactions could sound. The hub became a slaughterhouse. The Thraxed frantically sought escape, but met their end on human steel, breaking the command. Without commanders, the forces above were mindless. Harlan's attack roared like ancient fury, shattering enemy lines. Nolan's heart raced. He signaled retreat. They dashed through tunnels, thrilled with victory. Near the outpost, elite Thraxed enforcers ambushed them, shrouded in armor. Laser fire cut through shadows. Nolan felt shots hit his armor, pain sharp and hot. We're pinned, someone yelled. Lara clutched her grazed arm. Nolan's pulse pounded. He fired back, seeking escape. Then the attack halted. Confusion showed in the aliens' motions. Nolan rallied them to flee to safety inside the battered walls. The unexpected halt. They caught their breath as the enemy withdrew. But why? Nolan grabbed a dropped communicator. One transmission came through clear. They called him the Ghost, Nolan C., the phantom human wreaking havoc, a war specter, a shuddered name in barracks. Nolan smiled grimly. Humans brought fear to enemy hearts, masters of war, indomitable. Nolan the Ghost, their herald. Psychological warfare. Nolan crouched in the control room, playing eerie sounds over the Thraxed radio channels. Whispers, chants in their language, ghostly hums. The hidden speakers in the ruins came to life, sending the noises out into the Martian night. The sounds stirred up the enemy camp. Nolan watched a Thraxed soldier jerk his head around, looking for the source of the whispers. Others grabbed their guns, eyes darting at the shadows. The firelight flickered on their armor, making long twisting shadows move like they were alive. The Phantom's assault. Creating the anomaly. Lara worked on the Tempest device. Arcs of electricity shot out, punching holes in the air where they hit. The air shimmered, twisting light and dust into swirling holes of emptiness. "We've got a haunted battlefield here," she said, her voice holding awe and concern. Nolan grinned tightly. "Let's give them ghosts to fear." He rigged up sensors in the base that detected the device's energy, laying them where the Thraxed walked. The Phantom's attack. The Thraxed came. The traps reacted. Soldiers vanished with cut-off screams. yanked into the unstable space. Their friends watched, unable to move. More comrades disappeared without a trace. Harland watched it all through his scope from high up. Clever play, but they might get wise, he said over the radar, caution filling his gruff voice. Nolan moved to the next target zone. He nodded, though Harland couldn't see. We'll keep switching it up. Stay unpredictable, pushing the limits. Lara patched up another anomaly generator. She locked eyes with Nolan, hesitating. We can't predict these side effects forever, she warned, her fingers hovering over the glowing wires. Nolan held her gaze. He understood. One day at a time, Lara. Today, we've got the upper hand. They used the chaos to launch hit-and-runs, ambushing sentries, and looting supplies before defenses responded. In the morning, the enemy huddled together. They flinched at any sound. Rumors spread in whispers. The ghost of GIS-5. They called Nolan. Humans took the legend and wove it into the Thraxid's nightmares. The unseen specter now haunted their every step. The raid, Nolan bent over the communicator. Static filled his ears as his fingers tapped the alien buttons. Alien chatter came through. The fuel tanks are there for the taking, he said softly. Harland leaned in, eyes on the coordinates. In her corner, Lara worked on the Tempest, tools laid around her. She opened the machine, rewiring its insides. Her face tightened as she boosted its reach. Each change brought them closer to winning or losing everything. Fueling the war. Under the night sky, Harland and Nolan crept towards the fuel tanks, explosives weighing down their packs. They neared the alien depot. Nolan placed charges on the tanks, setting the timers in sync. Harland kept watch for alien patrols. The moon hummed low as they worked, the wind whispering through the canyons. The huge alien tanks loomed silent like monsters. Their size hid the quiet determination of the humans. The explosive final. At the outpost, Lara's hands remained steady, adrenaline rushing through her. She adjusted the Tempest, tuning its beams to cut a deadly path. Her eyes met Nolan's, a shared promise passed between them. The charges set. Nolan crouched and entered the final code. Let's give them a show, he said. Harland nodded, a faint smile on his face. Lara turned on the phantom signal. It copied the frequency of human ships. The trap lay open in space. The final push. Nolan watched the screen as alien ships swarmed the false signal. The enemy fleet hovered at the rift. The air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Nolan's thumb rested on the trigger, his heartbeat calling them to war. The blast shattered the silence. Fuel exploded in fire and metal, the power magnified by the rift. Alien ships spiraled in, crushed by forces they couldn't grasp. Nolan felt the ground shake. They had won but paid a price. Overloaded, the Tempest wailed its last. Alarms flashed as the base lost power. The rift yawned wider, reaching for the base with greedy hunger. Escape and resolve. Move, Nolan yelled over the noise. They sprinted through flaming debris, exhaustion fighting their determination. The aliens regrouped in disarray. The humans seized the opening. A damaged alien ship stood alone. Lara raced to the controls, flying the ship by instinct. Nolan clasped Harland's shoulder. Let's go. The engines roared awake. Dust swirled as they lifted off. They looked back at the chaos they created. Humanity had struck hard. The stars lay ahead, vast and unknown. The next battle waiting. New orders. Nolan had a tight grip on the controls. The lights on the Thrax ship blinked fast, but it listened to him, flying them away from the GIS-5 ruins. Dust from the fight still covered their suits, stained with sweat and the stink of gun blasts. Harland stood over the radio wires. Static crackled, and a voice came through, stern. Earth Command. Harland looked at Nolan to pay attention. Nolan kept his eyes on space ahead but listened. The aftermath. Communication from Earth Command. Major C, you disobeyed orders. Not acceptable. The voice from Earth Command echoed in the cabin. There was a pause. But you beat the Thraxed at GIS-5. You're a war genius, if undisciplined. The engine hummed as the message went on. Earth Command gives you two choices: face court-martial or command a new force. Beat the Thraxed with your tactics. Decide, Major. Weighing the options, Nolan breathed slow, weighing the paths. Court-martial was dishonor, but leading troops meant medals and strings attached. He looked back at his crew, warriors scared but resolute. Harlan broke the silence, steady and firm. We can hurt them, Nolan. With Earth's guns behind us, this is our chance. Lara's hand stopped on her console. Don't play their game. They'll use you and toss you aside. The call for help. Their eyes locked on Nolan. His choice meant their future too. The crew, the colonists they saved, the dead Marines, all weighed on him. The cabin was quiet except for alien engines. Then the radio flickered. Harlan cursed and fixed the signal. A distress call, urgent. Another colony in danger. Nolan's decision came fast and sure. We don't leave people to die. We answer that call. Lara nodded, fire in her eyes. Let's not waste time. Harlan punched in coordinates, engines roaring. They flew through space, away from Earth's offer, toward the plea for help. The call echoed as Nolan listened. Danger ahead. But the path was clear. Warriors with duty, Nolan, Harlan, Lara, ready to beat the odds as masters of war. The new battlefront. Nolan stood on a low hill, looking at the ragged line of settlers holding against the Thraxed. This second farm colony, important for food, was close to ruin. But Nolan arriving with his team sparked hope and despair. He motioned to Harlan, who took position with the militia. Harlan raised his rifle, aiming down the barrel. His stance steady as the rock under him gave courage to those around. They gripped their weapons, copying his posture. Watch the sides, Nolan said into the radio. Eyes on the enemy. Force them into the narrow paths. Use the land to help us. Creating a stronghold. Lara knelt in the dirt, wrench in hand, making the weapon from the Thrax tech they had taken. She focused as she twisted the alien metal, forcing it to serve humankind. The device whirred to life, lights blinking in order. Now a tool against its makers, she stood back ready. Nolan nodded and flipped the switch. The alien machine erupted in noise, confusing the Thraxed front line. Command's reaction. From afar, the screens at Earth Command lit up with the battle. Officers leaned forward, shocked and impressed. Nolan's tricks had turned things again, outsmarting the Thraxed. Whispers of respect sounded in the room. At the front, Nolan's team pressed their edge. His voice on the radio, steady, directing his fighters like a conductor leads music. They moved precisely, the Thraxed numbers meaningless against the humans' cunning and willpower. Inspiring the settlers. The settlers, seeing Nolan's smarts, found new resolve. They took up weapons and held their spots. Nolan's example made them more together than alone. Each became a fighter with his teaching, changing what none had hoped. With every fight, the legend of Nolan, the Ghost Sea, grew. Across Earth, military minds studied his tactics. His refusal to surrender seeped into the military mindset, each win emboldening them more. A new reputation. Even the logical Thraxed began to understand their mistake, underestimating humankind. Their perfect image was ruined by the upstarts of Earth. As Nolan and his team trained the settlers, a message came from command. They had seen enough. They knew where skill lay. They offered Nolan a new strike force. Nolan eyed his team, saw the trust and respect. They were ready at the edge of a great turn. The choice was simple. He took the command, knowing this was just the start of a bigger fight, one that would carve humanity's name across space as undeniable masters of war. The ultimate assault. Planning the endgame. Together, Command and Nolan's team planned the endgame. The Thraxed would never see it coming. A human tide, fierce and relentless, awaited to crash upon them. This was the beginning of the end, the moment to carve humanity's place in space. not just as survivors, but as conquerors, as legends, as masters of war. Building the alliance. Nolan's reputation had grown not only among humans, but also among the allied alien species who respected human ingenuity and determination. Delegations from various planets came to Nolan's base, offering support. The Yelith, known for their stealth and intelligence, provided advanced reconnaissance equipment. The Zereth, with their unparalleled strength, volunteered to fight alongside the humans. Uniting the forces, Nolan stood before a vast assembly of humans and aliens. "We face a common enemy," he began, his voice carrying over the crowd. "The Thraxed seek to dominate us all, but together we can stand against them. Together, we are stronger than any force in this galaxy." The first strike. With their combined forces, Nolan launched the first strike. The Thraxed outpost on the moon of Epsilon 7 was their target. Nolan's team, alongside the Yelith scouts, infiltrated the outpost. The Yelith moved like shadows, disabling security systems and paving the way for the main force. The Battle of Epsilon 7. The battle was fierce. The Zereth warriors clashed with the Thraxed in brutal hand-to-hand combat, their strength unmatched. Human soldiers provided cover fire, their precision and tactics superior. Nolan led the charge, his presence a beacon of hope and strength. The Thraxed, caught off guard by the coordinated assault, fell back, securing the outpost. As the smoke cleared, the outpost was theirs. Nolan's forces secured the perimeter, ensuring no Thraxed reinforcements could retake it. The victory was significant, a turning point in the war. It showed that the Thraxed were not invincible, that they could be beaten. Rallying the troops. Nolan addressed his troops, both human and alien. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We have shown the Thraxed that we will not be dominated. We will fight for our freedom, for our future. Together, we are unstoppable." A new threat, but victory came with a cost. The Thraxed retaliated with a devastating counterattack on the human colony of Nuterra. Nolan's team was called back urgently. The sight that greeted them was one of destruction and loss. Buildings lay in ruins, fires burned uncontrollably, and survivors huddled in makeshift shelters. Rebuilding and retaliation. Nolan's heart ached at the devastation, but he steeled himself. "We will rebuild," he vowed, "and we will make them pay for this." The combined forces worked tirelessly to restore Nuterra. Engineers from the Zereth and Yelith provided advanced technology to fortify the colony. The hunt for the Thraxed leader. Intelligence reports indicated that the Thraxed leader, General Xathar, was behind the attack on Nuterra. Nolan knew that taking down Xathar would deal a significant blow to the Thraxed's morale and command structure. He gathered a special task force, a mix of the best soldiers from each allied race, to hunt down Xathar. The final confrontation. The hunt led them to a remote Thraxed stronghold. The final confrontation was brutal. Xathar was a formidable opponent, but Nolan's team was relentless. With the combined skills and strengths of the allied forces, they cornered Xathar. In a final showdown, Nolan faced Xathar. The Thraxed general was powerful, but Nolan's determination and combat prowess prevailed. Victory and reflection. With Xathar's defeat, the Thraxed forces began to crumble. Nolan's team returned to Nuterra as heroes. But the victory was bittersweet. They had won, but the cost was high. Nolan stood before a memorial of those who had fallen, his heart heavy. "We fight for them," he said quietly, "for a future where we are free." A new era. The war against the Thrax was not over, but the tide had turned. Humanity, with their new allies, stood stronger than ever. Nolan knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but with unity and determination, they would prevail. The legend of Nolan, the Ghost Sea, and his team would inspire generations to come, a testament to human resilience and the indomitable spirit of those who fight for freedom. Legacy of the Ghost. Establishing a coalition. With the Thraxed weakened, Nolan focused on establishing a coalition of allied species. The Coalition of Free Worlds was formed, with representatives from humanity, the Yeleth, the Zereth, and other races who had suffered under Thrax's oppression. Nolan was elected as the Supreme Commander, a position that symbolized unity and strength.